One sunny afternoon in the small town of Maplewood, 10-year-old Tommy Jenkins was riding his bike home from school. Tommy was a curious boy with a knack for solving puzzles. As he pedaled past the old, creaky house on Elm Street, he noticed something shiny glinting in the grass near the fence. He stopped his bike and walked over to take a closer look. It was a beautiful golden necklace with a sparkling blue gem in the center. Tommy picked it up and turned it over in his hands. The back of the necklace had strange markings that looked like tiny stars and moons. Tommy had never seen anything like it before. He wondered who it belonged to and how it ended up in the grass. Just as he was about to put the necklace in his pocket, he heard a loud crash coming from inside the old house. Tommy froze. The house had been empty for as long as he could remember. Everyone in town said it was haunted. But Tommy didn't believe in ghosts. He was more curious than scared. He tiptoed up the cracked stone steps and peeked through the dusty window. Inside, he saw a shadowy figure moving quickly from room to room. The figure was holding a flashlight and seemed to be searching for something. Tommy's heart raced. Was this person looking for the necklace? And why were they in the old house? Tommy decided to investigate. He quietly opened the front door, which creaked loudly. The figure inside stopped moving. Tommy held his breath, hoping he hadn't been heard. But then, the flashlight beam swung toward the door, and Tommy ducked behind a bush just in time. The figure stepped out onto the porch. It was a tall man wearing a black coat and a hat pulled low over his face. Tommy couldn't see his eyes, but he could feel the man's intense gaze scanning the yard. The man muttered something under his breath and then went back inside, slamming the door behind him. Tommy knew he had to find out more. He carefully made his way around the side of the house, looking for another way in. He found a broken window near the back and climbed through, landing softly on the wooden floor inside. The house was dark and smelled like dust and old wood. Tommy could hear the man's footsteps upstairs. As he crept through the house, Tommy noticed something strange. The walls were covered in old photographs and maps. Some of the maps had red circles drawn on them, and the photographs showed people Tommy didn't recognize. One photo in particular caught his eye. It was a picture of a woman wearing the exact same necklace he had found. Tommy's mind raced. Who was this woman? And why was the man in the black coat looking for her necklace? Tommy knew he had stumbled onto something big, but he wasn't sure what to do next. Should he call the police? Or should he try to solve the mystery himself? Just then, he heard the man's footsteps coming down the stairs. Tommy quickly hid behind an old bookshelf, clutching the necklace tightly in his hand. The man walked past him, muttering to himself again. Tommy could hear him say, "It has to be here somewhere. The treasure is mine." Tommy's eyes widened. Treasure? What treasure? He knew he had to find out more, but he also knew he had to be careful. The man in the black coat was dangerous, and Tommy was just a kid. But he wasn't going to let that stop him. As the man disappeared into another room, Tommy made a decision. He would follow the clues and solve the mystery of the missing necklace. But first, he needed to get out of the house without being seen. He quietly made his way back to the broken window, but just as he was about to climb out, he heard the man's voice behind him. Well, what do we have here?" the man said, his voice cold and menacing. Tommy turned around slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. The man was standing in the doorway, blocking his escape. Tommy clutched the necklace tightly, knowing that his adventure was far from over. Tommy's mind raced as the man in the black coat stepped closer. The flashlight beam shone directly into his eyes, making it hard to see. Tommy took a step back, his hands still gripping the necklace tightly. He knew he had to think fast. "What are you doing here, kid?" the man growled, his voice low and threatening. "That necklace doesn't belong to you." Tommy swallowed hard but tried to sound brave. "I found it outside. I was just trying to return it to whoever lost it." The man's eyes narrowed. "You're a clever one, aren't you? But you don't understand what you've gotten yourself into. That necklace is the key to something much bigger than you can imagine." Tommy's curiosity got the better of him. "What do you mean? What's so special about this necklace?" The man hesitated, as if deciding whether to tell Tommy the truth. Then he smirked. Let's just say it's part of a treasure map. A treasure that's been hidden for over 100 years. And I'm not the only one looking for it. Tommy's eyes widened. A treasure map? This was even more exciting than he had thought. But he also knew he couldn't let the man take the necklace. If it was part of a map, it must be important. The man took another step closer. Hand it over, kid. You don't want to mess with me. Tommy glanced around the room, looking for a way out. The broken window was too far, and the man was blocking the door. But then he noticed something, a loose floorboard near his foot. Without thinking, Tommy dropped to his knees and pried it up with his free hand. He shoved the necklace under the floorboard and quickly stood up, hoping the man hadn't seen what he'd done. The man frowned. What are you doing? Give me the necklace. Tommy held up his empty hands. I don't have it anymore. I dropped it outside. The man's face turned red with anger. You're lying. He grabbed Tommy by the arm and started dragging him toward the door. You're coming with me. We'll find that necklace together. Tommy struggled, but the man was too strong. As they reached the front door, Tommy heard a loud bark. He turned his head and saw his dog, Max, running toward them. Max was a big, friendly golden retriever, but when he saw Tommy in trouble, he growled and bared his teeth. The man hesitated, loosening his grip on Tommy's arm. Call off your dog, kid. Tommy took his chance. He pulled away from the man and whistled for Max. Get him, Max! Max lunged at the man, barking loudly. The man stumbled back, tripping over the broken steps and falling to the ground. Tommy didn't wait to see what happened next. He ran as fast as he could, Max right beside him. When they reached the safety of the street, Tommy stopped to catch his breath. He knew the man wouldn't give up easily. He had to figure out what to do next. The necklace was still hidden under the floorboard in the old house, and the man knew Tommy had it, or at least knew where it was. Tommy looked down at Max, who was wagging his tail and looking up at him with loyal eyes. We've got a mystery to solve, Max, Tommy said. But we're going to need some help. Tommy decided to call his best friend, Emily. She was smart and brave, and she loved mysteries as much as he did. Together, they could figure out what the necklace meant and why the man in the black coat was so desperate to get it. As Tommy pulled out his phone to call Emily, he glanced back at the old house. The man was gone, but Tommy knew this was only the beginning. The mystery of the missing necklace was far from over, and Tommy was determined to solve it, no matter what dangers lay ahead. Tommy quickly dialed Emily's number, his hands still shaking a little from the encounter with the man in the black coat. After a few rings, Emily picked up. Hey, Tommy, what's up? She asked cheerfully. Emily, I need your help. It's serious, Tommy said, trying to keep his voice steady. Meet me at the park in 10 minutes. And bring your detective notebook. Emily didn't ask questions. She could tell from Tommy's voice that this was important. I'll be there, she said before hanging up. Tommy and Max hurried to the park, where they found Emily waiting on a bench. She had her notebook in one hand and a pencil behind her ear, ready for action. Emily was known in their school as the Detective Queen, because she had solved mysteries like who stole the classroom snacks and who drew funny faces on the principal's posters. What's going on, Tommy? Emily asked, her eyes wide with curiosity. Tommy sat down and told her everything. Finding the necklace, the man in the black coat, the treasure map, and how he'd hidden the necklace under the floorboard. Emily listened carefully, scribbling notes in her notebook. This is huge, Emily said when Tommy finished. A real treasure map? And a creepy guy in a black coat? This is like something out of a movie. I know, Tommy said, but we need to figure out what to do next. The man knows I have the necklace, or at least that I know where it is. He's not going to give up. Emily tapped her pencil against her chin, thinking. First, we need to get the necklace back before he finds it. Then we need to figure out what the markings on it mean. Maybe it's a clue to the treasure. Tommy nodded. But we can't go back to the house alone. That guy is dangerous. Just then, a voice behind them said, Sounds like you two could use some backup. Tommy and Emily turned around to see Jake, the oldest kid in their neighborhood. Jake was in 8th grade and was known for being tough but fair. He was also really good at fixing things and always carried a multi-tool in his pocket. "Jake," Tommy said, surprised. "How much did you hear?" "Enough to know you're in over your heads," Jake said, crossing his arms. "But don't worry, I've got your back. No creepy guy in a black coat is going to mess with my neighborhood." Emily grinned. "Perfect. With Jake's strength and my detective skills, we'll solve this mystery in no time." Tommy felt a little better knowing Jake was on their team. "Okay, here's the plan. We'll go back to the old house together and get the necklace. But we need to be careful. If the man shows up, we run." Jake nodded. "Sounds good. But we should also bring something to defend ourselves just in case. I've got a flashlight and my multi-tool. What about you two?" Emily pulled a small can of pepper spray from her backpack. "My mom makes me carry this," she said, "just in case." Tommy looked at Max, who was sitting loyally by his side. "Max will protect us too," he said. "Right, boy?" Max barked in agreement. The three of them, plus Max, headed back to the old house on Elm Street. As they approached, Tommy noticed something strange. The front door was wide open, and there were fresh tire tracks in the dirt driveway. "Someone's been here," Tommy whispered. "And it looks like they left in a hurry." Jake frowned. "Let's get inside and grab the necklace before they come back." They crept into the house, careful not to make any noise. Tommy led them to the room where he'd hidden the necklace. But when he lifted the floorboard, his heart sank. The necklace was gone. "No," Tommy said, his voice trembling. "It was right here. He must have come back and taken it." Emily knelt down and examined the floor. "Wait a minute," she said. "Look at this." She pointed to a small piece of paper that had been tucked under the floorboard. It hadn't been there before. Tommy picked it up and unfolded it. Written in messy handwriting were the words, "If you want the necklace, meet me at the old lighthouse at midnight. Come alone." Jake frowned. "This guy is playing games with us. But we're not falling for it. We'll all go to the lighthouse together." Emily shook her head. "No," he said, "to come alone. If we all show up, he might run away or worse. We need a better plan." Tommy thought for a moment. "What if I go to the lighthouse like he said, but you two hide nearby? If something goes wrong, you can jump in and help." Jake nodded. "That could work. But we'll need to be sneaky. Emily, you're good at hiding. You can stay close to Tommy. I'll keep watch from a distance with Max." Emily smiled. "Perfect. Let's do this." As they left the old house, Tommy couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. The man in the black coat was dangerous, but Tommy knew he couldn't back down now. The mystery of the missing necklace and the treasure it led to was too important. But as they made their way toward the old lighthouse, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. What did the man really want? And what was the treasure he was so desperate to find? The old lighthouse stood on a rocky cliff overlooking the ocean, its paint peeling and its windows dark. Tommy, Emily, Jake, and Max approached cautiously, keeping to the shadows. The moon was high in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the scene. Tommy checked his watch. 11:45 p.m. They had 15 minutes until midnight. "Okay," Tommy whispered, turning to his friends. "I'll go in first, like the note said. Emily, you hide behind those bushes near the door. Jake, you and Max stay further back and keep watch. If anything goes wrong, give me a signal." Jake nodded. "I'll whistle like an owl if I see trouble. You'll know it's me because I'm really good at it." He demonstrated with a low, haunting whistle that sent chills down Tommy's spine. Emily grinned. "That's perfect. Just don't scare Tommy too much." Tommy took a deep breath and stepped toward the lighthouse door. His heart was pounding, but he tried to stay calm. He pushed the creaky door open and stepped inside. The air was damp and smelled like salt and rust. A single beam of moonlight shone through a crack in the wall, illuminating a spiral staircase that led to the top of the lighthouse. "Hello," Tommy called out, his voice echoing. "I'm here. Where are you?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a voice came from above. "Up here, kid. Come on up." Tommy hesitated. He didn't like the idea of climbing the stairs, but he knew he had no choice. He started up the steps, each one creaking under his weight. When he reached the top, he saw the man in the black coat standing by the lighthouse window, the necklace dangling from his hand. "You've got guts, kid," the man said, his voice cold. "I'll give you that, but you're in way over your head." Tommy crossed his arms, trying to look braver than he felt. "What do you want? Why are you doing this?" The man smirked. "This necklace is the key to a treasure that's been hidden for over a century. A treasure that belongs to me, but I can't unlock its secrets without the other pieces of the map." Tommy frowned. "Other pieces?" The man held up the necklace, pointing to the strange markings on the back. "These symbols are part of a larger map. There are 3 other pieces, each with their own clues. I've been searching for them for years, and now that I have this one, I'm closer than ever." Tommy's mind raced. If there were other pieces, that meant the treasure was even bigger than he'd thought. But he couldn't let the man get away with it. "Why should I help you?" he asked. "You're just a thief." The man's smirk faded, and his eyes narrowed. "You don't understand, kid. This treasure isn't just gold and jewels. It's something much more valuable. And if you get in my way, you'll regret it." Before Tommy could respond, he heard Jake's owl whistle from outside. It was the signal something was wrong. Tommy glanced toward the staircase, but the man stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "Going somewhere?" the man said, his voice low and dangerous. Tommy's heart raced. He had to think fast. "Wait," he said, holding up his hands. "I can help you find the other pieces. I'm good at solving puzzles. And I know this town better than you do." The man hesitated, studying Tommy's face. "You're just a kid. Why should I trust you?" "Because you don't have a choice," Tommy said, trying to sound confident. "If you want the treasure, you'll need my help." The man stared at him for a long moment, then chuckled. "You've got nerve, kid. Fine. We'll work together for now. But if you double-cross me, you'll regret it." Tommy nodded, but his mind was already racing. He had no intention of helping the man. He just needed to buy time so his friends could come up with a plan. Just then, there was a loud crash from downstairs. The man spun around, his hand going to his pocket. Tommy took his chance. He grabbed the necklace from the man's hand and bolted for the staircase. "Hey!" the man shouted, lunging after him. Tommy raced down the stairs, the necklace clutched tightly in his hand. When he reached the bottom, he saw Emily and Jake standing by the door, a broken lantern at their feet. Max was growling, his teeth bared. "Tommy, run!" Emily shouted. Tommy didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted out the door, his friends and Max right behind him. They ran into the woods, the man's angry shouts fading behind them. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Tommy held up the necklace. "I got it back," he said, panting. "But he's not going to stop. He's after the other pieces of the map." Emily's eyes lit up. "Other pieces? This is even bigger than we thought." Jake frowned. "We need to figure out what those symbols mean. If we can find the other pieces before he does, we can stop him." Tommy nodded. "But we'll need more help. This is getting too dangerous for just the 3 of us." Emily grinned. "I know just who to call. My cousin, Mia. She's a history whiz and knows all about old maps and symbols. If anyone can help us solve this, it's her." Tommy felt a glimmer of hope. With Mia's help, they might have a chance. But he knew the man in the black coat wouldn't give up easily. The race to find the treasure was on, and Tommy and his friends were right in the middle of it. The next morning, Tommy, Emily, and Jake met at Emily's house to call her cousin, Mia. Mia was a college student studying ancient history, and she was known for solving puzzles that even professors couldn't figure out. When Emily explained the situation over the phone, Mia was immediately intrigued. "A necklace with strange symbols? And a treasure map," Mia said excitedly. "This sounds like something straight out of an adventure novel. I'll catch the next bus to Maplewood. Be there by noon." True to her word, Mia arrived at Emily's house just as the clock struck 12. She was tall with curly brown hair and glasses, and she carried a large bag filled with books and notebooks. Tommy handed her the necklace, and Mia's eyes lit up as she examined the markings on the back. These symbols are fascinating, Mia said, pulling out a magnifying glass. They're a mix of ancient runes and nautical codes. This isn't just a map. It's a puzzle that leads to something incredible. Can you figure out what it means? Tommy asked. Mia nodded. I think so, but I'll need some time to decode it. In the meantime, you should tell me everything you know about the man in the black coat and the old lighthouse. Tommy, Emily, and Jake took turns explaining everything that had happened, from finding the necklace to the encounter at the lighthouse. Mia listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions. When they finished, she leaned back in her chair, deep in thought. This man is clearly dangerous, Mia said, but he's also desperate. If he's been searching for these pieces for years, he won't stop until he has them all. We need to stay one step ahead of him. How do we do that? Jake asked. Mia smiled. By solving the puzzle first. Let's start with these symbols. She spread out a piece of paper and began sketching the markings from the necklace. This one looks like a compass, and this one resembles a ship's wheel. I think they're clues to the locations of the other pieces. Emily leaned over Mia's shoulder. So if we figure out what these symbols mean, we can find the other pieces before he does? Exactly, Mia said. But we'll need to work fast. If he's as determined as you say, he's probably already working on decoding the necklace. Just then, Max, who had been lying quietly by the door, suddenly stood up and started growling. Tommy looked out the window and saw a shadowy figure standing across the street. It was the man in the black coat. He's here, Tommy whispered, his heart racing. He found us. Jake grabbed his multi-tool and stood up. We need to get out of here. Now. Mia quickly gathered her notes and the necklace. There's a back door. Let's go. The group hurried out the back door and into the alley behind Emily's house. They ran through the narrow streets, trying to put as much distance between themselves and the man as possible. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Mia pulled out her phone. I have an idea, she said. There's an old library on the edge of town. It's quiet, and no one ever goes there. We can hide out and work on decoding the symbols without being disturbed. Tommy nodded. Let's go. The old library was a small, dusty building filled with ancient books and maps. Mia led them to a corner table and spread out her notes. She worked tirelessly, flipping through books and comparing symbols. Tommy, Emily, and Jake watched in awe as she pieced together the clues. After what felt like hours, Mia finally looked up. I've got it, she said, her eyes shining with excitement. The symbols on the necklace point to 3 locations: the old shipyard, the abandoned mine, and the clock tower in the town square. Each location holds one piece of the map. Tommy's heart raced. So if we find all 3 pieces, we'll have the complete map to the treasure? Exactly, Mia said. But we'll need to move quickly. The man in the black coat is probably already on his way to one of these places. Jake stood up. Then let's split up. Tommy and I will go to the shipyard. Emily and Mia, you take the mine. We'll meet at the clock tower when we're done. Emily nodded. Be careful, you guys. If you see the man in the black coat, don't try to fight him. Just run. Tommy and Jake headed to the old shipyard, while Emily and Mia made their way to the abandoned mine. As they walked, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced over his shoulder several times but saw no one. When they reached the shipyard, they found an old, rusted shipwreck half buried in the sand. Tommy climbed aboard, searching for anything that might look like a piece of the map. After a few minutes, he found a small metal box hidden under a pile of ropes. Inside was a piece of parchment with strange symbols drawn on it. I found it, Tommy shouted, holding up the parchment. But before Jake could respond, a voice behind them said, Hand it over, kid. Tommy turned around and saw the man in the black coat standing on the deck, a menacing look in his eyes. He was holding a knife, and Tommy knew they were in serious trouble. Jake stepped in front of Tommy, holding up his multi-tool like a weapon. You're not getting that map, he said, his voice steady. The man smirked. You think you can stop me? You're just a bunch of kids. Tommy's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outmatched. But he knew they couldn't give up. The treasure and the mystery behind it was too important. As the man stepped closer, Tommy clutched the piece of the map tightly, wondering how they were going to get out of this one. Tommy's heart pounded as the man in the black coat took another step closer, the knife glinting in his hand. Jake stood firm, his multi-tool raised like a weapon. But Tommy could see the tension in his friend's shoulders. They were in over their heads, and they both knew it. "Last chance, kid," the man growled. His eyes locked on the piece of the map in Tommy's hand. "Hand it over, or things are going to get ugly." Tommy glanced at Jake, who gave him a subtle nod. They had to think fast. Tommy took a deep breath and did the only thing he could think of. He threw the piece of the map as far as he could into the shipwreck's broken hull. The man's eyes widened in anger. "You little," he started. But before he could finish, Jake lunged at him, tackling him to the ground. The knife clattered out of the man's hand and slid across the deck. "Run, Tommy!" Jake shouted, struggling to keep the man pinned. Tommy hesitated for a split second, then bolted toward the spot where the map had landed. He scrambled through the debris, his hands shaking as he searched for the parchment. Finally, he spotted it wedged between two broken planks. He grabbed it and stuffed it into his pocket. Behind him, he heard a loud thud and turned to see Jake sprawled on the deck, the man standing over him. The man's face was twisted with rage as he advanced toward Tommy. "You're not getting away this time," the man snarled. Tommy backed up, his mind racing. He was trapped on the shipwreck with no way out. But just as the man reached for him, a loud bark echoed through the shipyard. Max came charging up the gangplank, his teeth bared and his fur bristling. "Max!" Tommy shouted, relief flooding through him. The man turned just in time to see Max leap at him. He stumbled back, trying to shield himself, but Max was too quick. The dog knocked him to the ground, growling fiercely. "Let's go!" Jake yelled, grabbing Tommy's arm. "While we still can." Tommy and Jake jumped off the shipwreck and ran as fast as they could, Max right behind them. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of the town square, where Emily and Mia were waiting by the clock tower. "What happened?" Emily asked, her eyes wide with concern as she saw the state they were in. "No time to explain," Tommy said, panting. "We got the piece, but the man in the black coat is right behind us. Did you find yours?" Mia held up a small, weathered piece of parchment. "We did. It was hidden in an old miner's helmet at the abandoned mine. But we had a close call too. We saw the man's car parked nearby. He's definitely onto us." Jake frowned. "Then we need to hurry. Where's the last piece?" Mia pointed to the clock tower. "According to the symbols, the final piece is hidden here. But we'll need to figure out exactly where." Tommy looked up at the towering clock face. The hands were frozen at 3:17, and the gears inside creaked ominously. "How do we get inside?" he asked. Emily grinned and pulled out a set of keys. "I borrowed these from the janitor at school. He said the clock tower is off-limits, but I figured this was an emergency." Mia raised an eyebrow. "Emily, you're amazing." The group hurried inside the clock tower, the dim light filtering through the dusty windows. The air was thick with the smell of oil and old wood. Mia immediately began examining the walls and gears, looking for any clues. "The symbols on the map pieces we have point to this tower," Mia said, pulling out her notes. "But we need to find the exact spot. Look for anything unusual. A loose brick, a hidden compartment, anything." Tommy, Emily, and Jake spread out, searching every inch of the tower. After a few minutes, Tommy noticed something strange. A small, metal lever hidden behind a gear. He pulled it, and with a loud clank, a hidden panel in the wall slid open. "Over here," Tommy called. The others rushed over as Tommy reached into the compartment and pulled out the final piece of the map. It was a small, intricately designed disc with symbols etched into its surface. "We did it," Emily said, her face lighting up. "Now we just need to put all the pieces together." Mia quickly laid out the 3 pieces on the floor. As she arranged them, the symbols began to align, forming a complete map. In the center was a large X, marked over a location deep in the woods outside of town. "That's it," Mia said, her voice filled with excitement. The treasure is here. But before they could celebrate, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed up the stairs. Tommy's heart sank as the man in the black coat appeared in the doorway. His face twisted with anger. "You kids just don't know when to quit," he said, holding up the knife again. "But this ends now. Hand over the map." Tommy clutched the final piece tightly, his mind racing. They were trapped in the clock tower with no way out. But as he glanced at his friends, he knew they weren't going to give up without a fight. "We're not giving you anything," Tommy said, his voice steady. "You'll have to take it from us." The man smirked and stepped closer, the knife gleaming in his hand. But just as he was about to make his move, the sound of sirens filled the air. The man's face went pale as he turned toward the window. "What's that?" he muttered. Tommy grinned. "That's the police. Emily called them when we got here. You're done." The man's eyes widened in panic. He turned and bolted down the stairs, but it was too late. The sound of shouting and footsteps echoed from below, and within moments, the police had him surrounded. Tommy and his friends watched from the clock tower window as the man was handcuffed and led away. They had done it, they had solved the mystery and stopped the man in the black coat. But as they looked down at the completed map, Tommy knew their adventure wasn't over yet. The treasure was still out there, waiting to be found. And with the man out of the way, nothing was stopping them from claiming it. "What do you say?" Tommy asked, turning to his friends. "Should we go find that treasure?" Emily, Jake, and Mia grinned. "Let's do it," they said in unison. With the man in the black coat finally arrested, Tommy and his friends felt a wave of relief. But the mystery wasn't over yet. The treasure was still out there, waiting to be found. The completed map lay on the floor of the clock tower, its symbols glowing faintly in the dim light. "We need to get to the woods before anyone else figures out where the treasure is," Mia said, carefully folding the map and tucking it into her bag. "But we should also let the police know where we're going, just in case." Tommy nodded. "Good idea. We don't want to take any chances." The group hurried down the stairs and out of the clock tower, where Officer Daniels, one of the town's friendliest police officers, was waiting. Tommy quickly explained what had happened and showed him the map. "You kids have been busy," Officer Daniels said, shaking his head in amazement. "I'll radio the station and let them know you're heading into the woods. But be careful. It's easy to get lost out there." "We will," Tommy promised, "and we'll call if we need help." With that, the group set off toward the edge of town, where the woods stretched out in a dense, shadowy expanse. The map led them to a narrow trail that wound through the trees, the symbols on the map matching landmarks along the way: a twisted oak tree, a pile of moss-covered rocks, and a small, bubbling creek. As they walked deeper into the woods, the air grew cooler, and the sounds of the town faded away. Tommy couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The woods were beautiful, but they were also vast and mysterious. What if they couldn't find the treasure? Or worse, what if someone else was already looking for it? "Do you think the man in the black coat was working alone?" Emily asked, as if reading Tommy's thoughts. "I don't know," Tommy admitted, "but we should stay alert just in case." Jake nodded, gripping his multi-tool tightly. "If anyone tries to mess with us, they'll regret it." Mia, who had been studying the map as they walked, suddenly stopped. "We're close," she said, pointing to a large, gnarled tree with a hollow trunk. "According to the map, the treasure should be right here." The group gathered around the tree, their excitement growing. Tommy reached into the hollow and felt around until his fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. He pulled it out and held it up, a small, rusted key. "A key," Emily said, frowning. "I thought we were looking for treasure." "Maybe it's a key to the treasure," Mia suggested. "Look, there's something engraved on it." Tommy turned the key over and saw a series of numbers etched into the metal. 7-12-3. "What do you think it means?" he asked. Mia's eyes lit up. "It's a code. The map must lead to a locked container, and this key opens it. But we'll need to figure out where the container is." Jake groaned. "More puzzles? Can't the treasure just be, like, buried under a rock or something?" Emily laughed. "Where's the fun in that?" As they debated what to do next, Max suddenly started growling. His ears perked up. Tommy turned and saw a flicker of movement in the trees. His heart skipped a beat. "Someone's out there," he whispered. The group fell silent, their eyes scanning the woods. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of rustling leaves. Then, a figure stepped out from behind a tree. A woman with sharp features and a determined look in her eyes. She was holding a rolled-up piece of paper in one hand and a flashlight in the other. Well, the woman said, her voice smooth but cold. "It looks like I'm not the only one searching for the treasure." Tommy's stomach dropped. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to sound brave. The woman smirked. "Let's just say I'm a collector. And that key you're holding belongs to me." Jake stepped forward, his multi-tool at the ready. "We're not giving you anything. You can turn around and leave right now." The woman's smirk faded, and her eyes narrowed. "You kids don't understand what you're dealing with. This treasure isn't just gold and jewels. It's something much more valuable. And I'm not leaving without it." Tommy exchanged a worried glance with his friends. They were outnumbered and outmatched. But they couldn't let the woman take the key. They had come too far to give up now. As the woman took a step closer, Max let out a fierce bark, his teeth bared. The woman hesitated, clearly not expecting the dog to be a threat. "Max, stay," Tommy said, his voice firm. He turned to the woman. "If you want the key, you'll have to go through us." The woman's eyes flicked from Tommy to Jake to Emily and Mia, then to Max, who was growling low in his throat. For a moment it seemed like she might back down. But then she reached into her coat and pulled out a small silver device that looked like a remote control. "You leave me no choice," she said, pressing a button on the device. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to rumble, and the trees around them shook. Tommy and his friends stumbled back, their eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" Emily shouted. The woman smiled coldly. "Let's just say I came prepared. If you won't give me the key, I'll take it, and you won't be able to stop me." As the rumbling grew louder, Tommy realized they were in more danger than ever. The woman wasn't just after the treasure. She was willing to do whatever it took to get it. And now, Tommy and his friends were caught in the middle of her plan. But Tommy wasn't ready to give up. He clutched the key tightly and looked at his friends. "We need to get out of here. Now." As they turned to run, the woman's laughter echoed through the woods, sending chills down Tommy's spine. The race to find the treasure had just gotten a lot more dangerous, and Tommy knew they were running out of time. The ground continued to shake as Tommy and his friends sprinted through the woods, the woman's laughter echoing behind them. Trees swayed ominously, and the sound of cracking branches filled the air. Tommy clutched the key tightly, his mind racing. What had the woman done? And how were they going to get out of this? "This way!" Mia shouted, leading them off the trail and toward a dense thicket of bushes. "We can lose her in here." The group dove into the bushes, their breaths coming in short, panicked gasps. Max stayed close to Tommy, his ears twitching at every sound. They crouched low, trying to stay hidden as the rumbling slowly subsided. "What was that?" Emily whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Did she cause an earthquake or something?" Mia shook her head. "I don't think so. That device she had, it looked like some kind of remote. Maybe she triggered something underground." Tommy's heart sank. "You mean like explosives?" Before Mia could answer, they heard the woman's voice again, closer this time. "You can't hide forever, kids," she called out. "Give me the key, and I might let you go." Jake clenched his fists. "We can't just sit here. We need a plan." Tommy thought quickly. "We need to split up. If we all go in different directions, she won't be able to follow all of us. Mia, you take the key and head toward the creek. Emily, you and Jake go west. I'll stay here with Max and distract her." Emily shook her head. "No way, Tommy. That's too dangerous." "It's the only way," Tommy said firmly. "We have to protect the key. If she gets it, the treasure is as good as hers." Mia hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but be careful, Tommy. We'll meet back at the clock tower as soon as we can." Tommy handed Mia the key and watched as she Emily, and Jake slipped away through the bushes. He took a deep breath and turned to Max. "Ready, boy?" Max let out a soft whine, his tail wagging slightly. Tommy patted his head. "Good dog. Let's do this." Tommy stood up and stepped out of the bushes, making sure the woman could see him. "Over here!" he shouted, waving his arms. "You want the key? Come and get it." The woman's head snapped in his direction, and a cold smile spread across her face. "There you are," she said, starting toward him. "You're a brave one, I'll give you that. But bravery won't save you now." Tommy turned and ran, Max right beside him. He led the woman deeper into the woods, away from his friends. The trees grew thicker, and the ground became uneven, but Tommy didn't slow down. He could hear the woman's footsteps behind him, her breathing heavy but determined. As he ran, Tommy noticed something strange, a faint glow coming from the ground up ahead. He slowed down just enough to see that the glow was coming from a series of symbols carved into the rocks. They looked just like the ones on the map. "What they?" Tommy muttered, stopping to take a closer look. The woman caught up to him, her eyes narrowing as she saw the symbols. Well, she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "It looks like you've led me right to it." Tommy backed away, his heart pounding. "What is this place?" The woman smirked. "You really don't know, do you? This is the entrance to the treasure vault. And now that I have you, I don't need the key." Before Tommy could react, the woman pressed another button on her device. The ground beneath them began to shake again, and the symbols on the rocks started to glow brighter. A low, rumbling sound filled the air, and the ground started to split open, revealing a hidden staircase leading underground. Tommy's eyes widened in shock. "What did you do?" The woman laughed. "I told you, kid. I came prepared. Now, let's see what's down there, shall we?" She grabbed Tommy by the arm and started dragging him toward the staircase. Max barked furiously, trying to bite the woman's leg, but she kicked him away. Tommy struggled, but the woman was too strong. As they descended the staircase, Tommy's mind raced. He had to find a way to escape, and fast. But the deeper they went, the more he realized that this wasn't just a treasure hunt anymore. The woman was after something much bigger, and Tommy was caught right in the middle of it. At the bottom of the staircase, they entered a large, cavernous room filled with strange artifacts and glowing crystals. In the center of the room was a massive, locked door covered in intricate carvings. The woman's eyes lit up with greed. "Finally," she whispered, "the treasure is mine." But as she stepped toward the door, Tommy noticed something. A small, hidden lever on the wall. If he could just reach it, maybe he could trigger a trap or lock the woman inside. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance he had. As the woman focused on the door, Tommy slowly reached for the lever, his heart pounding in his chest. He just hoped his friends were on their way. Tommy's fingers brushed against the lever, his heart racing as he tried to move as quietly as possible. The woman was still focused on the massive door, muttering to herself as she examined the carvings. Tommy knew he had only one chance to pull the lever without her noticing. Just as he was about to yank it, the woman suddenly turned around, her eyes narrowing. "What do you think you're doing?" she snapped, striding toward him. Tommy froze, his hands still on the lever. "And nothing," he stammered, trying to sound innocent. The woman grabbed his arm and pulled him away from the wall. "Don't play games with me, kid. I've been searching for this treasure for years, and I'm not about to let some nosy brat ruin it for me." Tommy's mind raced. He had to stall her, buy time for his friends to find him. "Why do you even want the treasure so badly?" he asked, trying to sound curious. "What's so special about it?" The woman hesitated, then smirked. "You really don't know, do you? This isn't just any treasure. It's a source of incredible power that could change the world. And it's going to be mine." Tommy's eyes widened. Power? What kind of power was she talking about? Before he could ask, the woman shoved him toward the door. "Now stand still and don't move. I have work to do." As the woman turned her attention back to the door, Tommy glanced around the room, looking for another way out. The staircase was too far, and the woman was blocking the only exit. But then he noticed something. A small, narrow passageway hidden behind a pile of rocks. If he could just reach it, maybe he could escape. But before he could make a move, the sound of footsteps echoed from the staircase. Tommy's heart leaped as he saw Emily, Jake, and Mia appear at the bottom of the stairs, Max right behind them. "Tommy!" Emily shouted, her voice filled with relief. The woman spun around, her face twisting in anger. "You again?" she snarled. "I thought I told you to stay out of my way." Jake stepped forward, his multi-tool in hand. "Let him go or you'll regret it." The woman laughed coldly. "You really think you can stop me? You're just a bunch of kids." Mia, who had been quietly studying the room, suddenly spoke up. "Actually, we might not need to stop you, because if I'm right, this whole place is about to collapse." The woman's smirk faded. "What are you talking about?" Mia pointed to the glowing crystals on the walls. "These crystals are part of an ancient mechanism. If you tamper with the door, it could trigger a chain reaction that brings the whole cavern down." The woman hesitated, clearly unsure whether to believe Mia. Tommy saw his chance. While the woman was distracted, he darted toward the hidden passageway, grabbing Max's collar as he went. "Run!" Tommy shouted to his friends. Emily, Jake, and Mia didn't need to be told twice. They turned and bolted up the staircase, Tommy and Max right behind them. The woman let out a furious scream and started to chase after them, but the ground beneath her began to shake violently. "She triggered it," Mia shouted as they reached the top of the staircase. "The mechanism, it's activating." The group sprinted out of the cavern and into the woods, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Behind them, they heard a loud crash as the entrance to the cavern collapsed, sealing the woman inside. Tommy and his friends didn't stop running until they were safely back in the town square, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. They collapsed onto the grass, their hearts still pounding. "Is she gone?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Mia nodded. "For now, but I don't think we've seen the last of her. She's too determined to give up that easily." Tommy looked down at the key, which Mia had handed back to him. "What do we do now? We still have the key, but the treasure is buried." Mia smiled. "Not necessarily. The map led us to the cavern, but the key might open something else. Something even more important." Jake groaned. "More puzzles? Can't we just take a break?" Emily laughed. "Where's the fun in that?" As they sat there, catching their breath and trying to make sense of everything that had happened, Tommy couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. They had faced danger and come out on top, for now. But the mystery of the treasure was far from over, and Tommy knew their adventure was just beginning. Tommy and his friends sat in the town square, the key to the treasure resting in Tommy's hand. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow over the town. Despite the danger they had just faced, they couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. They had outsmarted the woman in the black coat and uncovered the secrets of the map. But there was still one question lingering in their minds. What did the key unlock? Mia pulled out the map and studied it again, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The symbols on the key match these markings here," she said, pointing to a small, intricate design in the corner of the map. "I think the key opens something hidden in the town, something no one has found yet." "Like what?" Jake asked, leaning over her shoulder. "I'm not sure," Mia admitted. "But if the treasure in the cavern was just a decoy, the real treasure might be something even more valuable." Tommy's eyes lit up. "Then let's find it. We've come this far, we can't stop now." The group agreed and set off to follow the new clue. The map led them to the Old Town Hall, a grand building with a clock tower that had stood for over a century. Inside, they found a hidden door behind a bookshelf in the library. The key fit perfectly into the lock, and with a soft click, the door swung open. Inside was a small room filled with ancient books, artifacts, and a single ornate chest. Tommy opened the chest carefully, revealing not gold or jewels, but something far more valuable. A collection of historical documents, maps, and letters that told the story of their town's founding. Among the papers was a letter from the town's first mayor, explaining that the real treasure was the town's history and the legacy of its people. "This is incredible," Mia said, her voice filled with awe. "These documents are priceless. They tell the story of how our town was built and the people who made it what it is today." Emily smiled. "So the real treasure wasn't gold or power, it was knowledge." Tommy nodded, feeling a swell of pride. "And we found it. We saved it from falling into the wrong hands." Jake grinned. "Not bad for a bunch of kids, huh?" As they left the town hall, the group felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had solved the mystery, faced danger, and uncovered the true treasure. But more importantly, they had learned the value of teamwork, courage, and perseverance. The greatest treasures in life aren't always gold or jewels. They're the knowledge, history, and connections we share with others. True courage comes from standing up for what's right, even when faced with danger, and the power of teamwork can help us overcome any challenge. Sometimes the real adventure is not in the destination, but in the journey itself.